Good morning and welcome to Ed's World, where it's always morning, even in the afternoon. I am your host, Jay Edgar, and I'm joined today, and it's actually morning for you still over there on your neck of the woods here, but I am joined by a newcomer to the audio commentary platform, Britt, from Tweets by Britt. Welcome to Ed's World.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Let's get rid of some of this music here. I think it's about time for us to go ahead and get started. So, welcome on in. How was your day today? I know it's pretty early still by you, and we were talking a bit off mic about some stuff, but I don't know how much you want to share with the world on that one.
Oh, my life is an open book. I think if you've seen any of my tweets, you know I talk about everything. So my morning started early. So I'm up, I'm ready to go. I'm a little frantic and hectic, and that's just normal. So,
Well, we've got a pretty full show today. Not as bad as last week, and I'm hoping that we don't spend an hour talking on 2020 like I did with Jake last week here, but we've got a bunch of stuff to talk about here. We will be talking about 2020 because we had a caucus and a debate that we both need to talk about here, and some of the things that happened there. We've got some video to watch of that as well, so we'll see what's going on there. Coronavirus is starting to spread throughout the rest of the world, including places like Iran is ironically going to get some of that as well. And, well, we'll see what happens there because they don't exactly have the best containment methods over in the Middle East. So we'll talk about what's going on there. The Supreme Court had an immigration decision, and Justice Sotomayor decided that she needed to give a scathing dissent about it. We'll talk a bit about what's going on there, what this means for the country, and what it means for the Supreme Court with the fact that she's giving this massively angry response to it. A series of Oregon counties have decided to petition to secede over to I almost said Ohio. That's a long ways from Oregon. Idaho. We'll talk a bit about that, and we'll look at a map of what that could possibly look like, including maybe even going further than Oregon itself. Lastly, the United Kingdom, the National Health Service has made a decision. They made a change in their law, and we'll talk a bit about what could happen there and what could happen if that comes over to this country as well. It's going to be all of this and more over on Ed's World. Thanks for checking us out over on YouTube. We are also live on Twitch and DLive and Periscope for Twitter. If you're on Twitter, though, head on over to the YouTube link, the DLive link, or the Twitch link, because otherwise we can't really see what's going on in the chat there, which I forgot to bring up. Let's go ahead and bring that up here. See how choppy that makes the video. If you can't catch us live, you can also catch us over on the audio platforms or on demand over on YouTube. But for this episode only, because of schedule interference and some of the other things that we've had to see here, we also are going to be recasting this later on in the day, so you can go ahead and check us out at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, where it's just going to be a pre-recorded interview, but we'll both be hanging out in the live chat and answering questions if you have any of them from the broadcast that we're broadcasting. Ed's World is proudly partnered with the Freedom Scoop Media Group, where I am now in charge. It's been official. Jake announced it last week. So we're going to be changing a few things as we go along there. We're going to try and keep it the same, but possibly get some more writers and other people on board with that. So check us out for updates here. Check us out for new content and the classic content from people like myself, Stephen Ignoramus, and the Generational Gap. Check us all out over there, and if you have any interest in writing for a freedom of speech platform, go ahead and send me a message over on Twitter or over on YouTube. You can leave it in a comment or send me an email, edsblogtwitter@gmail.com, and we will see what we can do to get you up on the platform and get you vetted for it. After the lengthy introduction, it's always my favorite part of the show to see what it is that the guest has to say. And like I said, you're new to the commentary, so this may be the first time you're introducing yourself out there. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?
My name's Brittany. I am. You can find me on Twitter at Tweets by Britt. Basically, I've been kind of in the political libertarian Twitter for a couple years now. I guess for whatever reason, I'm get my voices being heard a little more the last few months. Before that, I was really most of my social media was working with bands and other businesses that I kind of handled their social media for, and events, things like that. So that's me in a nutshell. So, and also it turns out I'm really shy on camera. So,
Well, we'll see if we can work on that here and maybe help on the delivery here. But one of the things I always like to ask the guests, and like I say, you're very new in this, so this is going to be a fresh story for you. But you say you're starting off going into this. I got the link in the description below for an upcoming show that you've got coming up here. But tell us a bit about how you decided to get into this sphere of commentary and independent media.
well, it really started out a couple years ago, sitting in a mom group of all places. I live in Los Angeles, and m- mostly my friends, all the people in my world in Los Angeles, acquaintances, they're all extremely liberal, extremely left leaning. And I just felt like there wasn't a space for people like me who live here and aren't necessarily conservatives. We're not necessarily Trump supporters, although I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm a supporter of liberty and freedom, and uh, I just felt like one day I just decided I was going to start a Facebook page for Southern California libertarians. And it was very small for a long time. And then it just kind of started to snowball. And the more it grew, the more my voice grew, the more I realized that it's okay for me to have a different opinion than the people around me. It's okay for me to also not want to throw California into the ocean like the rest of the country, and to say, you know what, we have a really great place here. California is amazing in so many ways, but there's a lot of super liberal policies and a lot of just tax. It's just being taxed into servitude that I think people are getting sick of. And somebody needed to just start talking about it. Somebody needed to really just say, you know what, I might lose friends. I might have people disagree with me, but I'm going to go ahead and say I love this state too much to just be quiet about it and go along with status quo.
Well, with that proximity, even if you did lose out on employment opportunities, you're close enough. You could probably still get hired by the Daily Wire if that's something you really want to torture yourself with.
I don't know that I would go that far right, although I'm I am a fan, so but I just don't agree with everything. Okay, can I say I admire them without being a fan? Does that make sense?
That does. Yeah, it's kind of my love-hate relationship with Shapiro myself, so. All right, let's check in with the live chat here, see what we've got going on. Uh, just in case you're wondering, we're not using Discord this time. It's like we couldn't get it to connect going out. So if the video gets a little bit choppy, it's because my laptop cannot handle the Google Hangouts call and the stream at the same time. So we're going to get a PayPal set up, and if you want to help correct that, go ahead and send some money my way. I will take any donations to the laptop fund. Actually, I'm building a new desktop, not a laptop, but I will take any donations anyway. Looks like we've got John from Generational Gap chatting as Yamafago up in there, so welcome on in. Make sure you go over and check their channel out as well. And Never Evil, a new voice over in here. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome on in. So, 2020 is coming up here, and we talk a lot about that because that was actually part of the reason I started up into this here. And there's a little bit to talk about this week as well, starting with the fact that we had a debate this year, or we've had plenty of debates this year. We've had a debate this past week, and rather than being 2 hours of Orange Man bad like the previous debates had been, we actually saw some of the gloves come off. And some of these people actually start going at each other in ways that I didn't think was possible from watching previous debates here. I tried to come up and build myself a highlight reel of my own, but I found the one from NBC just sitting on YouTube watched it all the way through and thought that it was perfect enough to be used as the highlight reel. So we're going to watch that for the beginning here. It's about 5 minutes long, but we'll stop in between and discuss what we see going on here. Let me get that queued up and ready to go. Oops. There we go. This one.
I'd like to talk about who we're running against. A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg.
I actually welcomed Mayor Bloomberg to the stage. I thought that he shouldn't be hiding behind his TV ads. I don't think you look at Donald Trump and say, we need someone richer in the White House.
Let's put forward somebody who actually lives and works in a middle-class neighborhood in an industrial Midwestern city. Let's put forward somebody who's actually a Democrat. Look.
The one thing that I'm really worried about, embarrassed about, was how it turned out with stop and frisk. It got out of control.
And it's not whether he apologized or not, it's the policy. The policy was abhorrent, and it was, in fact, a violation of every right people have.
I have no tolerance for the kind of behavior that the Me Too movement has exposed. In my foundation, the person that runs it's a woman. 70% of the people there are women. In my company, lots and lots of women have big responsibilities. They get paid exactly the same as men.
And I hope you heard what his defense was. I've been nice to some women. Mr. Mayor, are you willing to release all of those women from those non-disclosure agreements so we can hear their side of the story?
There's agreements between two parties that wanted to keep it quiet, and that's up to them.
We are not going to beat Donald Trump with a man who has who knows how many non-disclosure agreements and the drip, drip, drip of stories of women saying they have been harassed and discriminated against. That's not what we do as Democrats.
Mr. Vice President. I believe in democratic socialism for working people.
Now, before we get up onto that there, I want to talk a bit about some of these attacks that popped up with Bloomberg, because that's been, I think, center stage for a lot of the discussions that have happened about this debate specifically, both over on Twitter and on podcasts like this themselves. And first off, one of the things that keeps coming up is people keep saying, well, Mayor Bloomberg spent, what was it, like $40 million to get beat around like this?
They said the same thing about Donald Trump. I mean, to that, my blanket answer is, and this is going to sound horrible, you could think what you want about it, but I think that there is a sect of society that has made so much money and done so many things that at one point in their life, they just say, I'm coming near the end of my life, I've done all these other things, maybe president. Why not president? I'm sorry, I think at the end of the day, that's a lot of what this is for old rich men. It's like they've done everything else, so why not be president?
Well, that's part of the thing, too, that I've noticed when I'm watching stuff like this here. I don't know. One of the things that they left out of this highlight reel is the fact that everyone kept saying that Bloomberg can't buy his way into the election. And essentially, that's what he did. He put a bunch of money in and I guess kind of pushed the DNC to change the rules so he could get in. Because, yeah, you had to have a certain number of grassroots donors before this debate to get into any debates.
Well, I think that says a lot more about the DNC than it says about Bloomberg. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you don't like it, then change your party. Do better. I'm not the person that you're going to come to find compassion towards any of these other candidates. So I like Bloomberg. I think he puts a thorn in the side of Warren. I like that. I think that he goes after Bernie. You're not going to find me over here saying like, oh, poor them. So you don't like it, change the rules. They've all been in politics a lot longer than he has. So
they have. Well, that's some of the something too we're looking at. I mean, Bloomberg has been he's been in politics before. He's been a mayor
Yeah.
before, but I mean, we're looking at a country that is getting ready to try and take some of the long-term politicians out, which the caucus might have thrown a wrench into that theory itself, but take some of the long-term people out and put some more people in that have less political experience. Make it a bit more by the people for the people.
Yeah, I see that. I think that that's just another spin on on what the GOP did with Donald Trump is, get rid of these Washington insiders and put someone new in there. It just, to me, it's the same story with different people, younger people. What I, if we can go off topic for a second, what I didn't see in that reel, what I haven't seen on Twitter, what I have not seen at all, was the absolute brilliant takedown that Elizabeth Warren did towards Amy Klobuchar. How do you say her name?
Klobuchar.
For somebody that couldn't remember a president's name, like I will never be able to remember hers if she's president.
Oh, that's actually in later on in the reel, but
So I see what she's. I watch this which I see women do in business all the time, where if one woman's being attacked, another woman comes up in the same meeting and kind of bolsters her up and lifts her up, and that's something that just women, do. We're taught to do in business. So when Amy was being attacked about not knowing the president of Mexico, Elizabeth Warren came in and kind of put her under a cloak and said, I don't think it's fair we do this. And Amy just snuggled right into that cloak, and Elizabeth Warren smothered her with it and made it very clear right in that moment that Elizabeth Warren was the parent in the situation. She was the one that was in control of the situation. She was the one that was going to calm everyone down and get everyone, back to sensible, reasonable discussion. And in that moment, she also made sure that it looked like Amy doesn't know how to handle these situations. And then she turned around and attacked her on every other issue in that same way of, well, Amy has a Post-it note for healthcare. Amy, it's like she's so inexperienced. She doesn't know. Let mommy handle this. And I haven't really seen anybody kind of address the brilliance in that. It's so wickedly wonderful. So I was actually kind of excited to see it, even though I like Amy a lot better than I like Elizabeth Warren. I can't stand her at all. I think she's a snake in the grass. But I mean, that's just me. But it was brilliant to watch. Yeah. And I'm shocked that it wasn't commented on in that way more.
Well, it is going to be late. Like I said, it's going to be a bit later on in this reel what you're talking about. But I mean, Amy was the target of a lot of people too. Oh, there were some moments that that didn't make this particular highlight reel, but I took out of another one, where just Amy and Pete were going back and forth with each other, like.
Yeah, and poor Pete, he just doesn't realize that once Amy's gone, he's the next one. It's like, she is not the one you want to go after, Pete, because she's the one that's going to fall off first, and then it's going to be you. So maybe you want to keep her around just for a little bit. So, I mean, that's just, my overall take on it. And I think he did make some good points, but I think that she's a fighter. I mean, I feel like she probably does have the most heart of anyone on stage.
I want to ask you about something here that I've been kind of thinking about since this particular debate. It just kind of dawned on me as I saw the commentary swirl around this. Do you think Bloomberg is in league with Trump? I mean, I can go over to the kitchen and grab some tinfoil here if we want to throw that on here, but...
What do you mean? That, they had planned this?
He is sitting there taking this kind of abuse simply for the fact that they're going to take the attention off of Trump for this. With stop and frisk in his history, he has some semblance that there's no way that he can do this, but I mean, they're both New York businessmen. One hand has washed the other at some point in their lives, I know.
Oh gosh, that's a bridge too far for me. I don't think so. I think a lot of this, to be honest, is ego, and I think he has the means to give himself a platform to say what he has to say. I don't really think he cares if he's president. I think he wants to have a platform to say what he wants to say. That's really where it falls for me. I don't think he would make a good president. I don't think that he is taking this seriously. I don't think anybody really expects him to do well. But he, I could be wrong. We have Donald Trump as our president right now. So but we were all saying the same things
4 years ago.
Yeah. So
let's see.
but no, I don't think I don't think one hand is, watching out for the other.
Let's see what the rest of NBC's highlight reel looks like.
Not billionaires.
What a wonderful country we have. The best-known socialist in the country happens to be a millionaire with 3 houses. What did I miss here?
Well, you'll miss that I work in Washington, House 1.
That's the first problem.
Live in Burlington, House 2.
That's good.
And like thousands of other Vermonters, I do have a summer camp. Forgive me for that. Where is your home? Which tax haven do you have your home?
New York City, thank you very much.
Yeah, well,
and I pay all my
home.
taxes. And I'm happy to do it because I get something for it.
And Mitch McConnell, I've been the object.
So that was another one, too, where, you talked about a well-crafted takedown, and I know Bloomberg took a lot of abuse for the first half of this debate, but that last one, that point that he made, and he's absolutely right. I mean, nobody on the Democrat side has ever pointed out the fact that Bernie Sanders has 3 houses, and
I love that. I love that he brought up, and I love the look on his face where he was like, it's almost like it wasn't a plan, like it wasn't planned for him to say it right in that moment. But he was frustrated, and he was just like, I am so sick of this guy's pandering. And he espouses this everyman, we all work together, socialism, and then he's got 3 houses, and he's a millionaire, and he's a con man who's never generated wealth for this country at all. At all. And I love that Bloomberg did what he did. Well,
and it's interesting, too. I mean, they tried to, and I've seen a lot of people, especially in the live chat. I watched Beauty in the, I can't talk right now, Beauty in the Beta last night. And Blonde was actually sympathetic to a point to Bernie Sanders because, I mean, she came out and said she didn't think that the houses were worth that much. She did the Google search and the calculation on the air last night, and it turns out that, 2 of those houses are like $400,000 houses.
2 of those houses being $400,000 houses when we have a housing crisis in this country.
Yeah.
And we have people in this country that can't afford a $90,000 house. I still, it doesn't make, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. That's semantics to me, really. I just, and again, I come from a place of bias because I just think Bernie Sanders is just full of it. Mm-hmm. I never bought this, like, at least he's honest, because I don't think he is. I think he's disingenuous. I think he always has been. He espouses one thing, and then he does have these 3 houses, and he, I also, it's like all the things that he wants for America, he's not planning on having for himself.
Well, I got a bang out of the fact that he said it too, like all good Vermonters, I have a summer home. That was probably not the right answer for that particular moment.
Yeah, I love that you caught that. So
let's see what else they have to rip on each other for.
Object of his affection and the president's affection, the way he's gone after me, this new Republican Party, after me, after my son, after my family. I don't need to be told I'm a friend of Mitch McConnell's. Mitch McConnell has been the biggest pain in my neck in a long, long time.
And that's what we are saying, Pete, is maybe it's a time for the working class of this country to have a little bit of power in Washington rather than your billionaire campaign contributors.
All right, look, first of all,
I know. And if there are a few people who make ugly remarks, who attack trade union leaders, I disown those people. They are not part of our movement.
But leadership is about what you draw out of people. It's about how you inspire people to act.
I have an idea of how we
move us forward.
Stop sexism on the internet. We could nominate a woman for candidate for president of the United States.
Mayor Buttigieg really has.
So You pointed out the fact that Amy Klobuchar was under Elizabeth Warren's cloak, and Elizabeth Warren said, okay, well, I'm going to make it okay for you. I heard somebody mention it, and I actually looked it up and confirmed it. Amy Klobuchar lifted that line directly from Elizabeth Warren's campaign because she said the same thing right at the beginning. How do we end sexism on the internet? Well, let's have a woman president. She said that almost word for word.
Yeah, she probably did. I believe you. I don't put anything above any of them for trying. I mean, that's also it's also like a mantra of, the left, and so I'm not super surprised.
Well, it brings it back down from an actual contest of ideas, which I would not mind having a female president if she could win on the contest of ideas. But I mean, these people are trying to win on the contest of wedge issues. What was her name? Kamala Harris, Warren, Klobuchar. That's all that they have is just wedge issues. I'm a little surprised Harris didn't last longer because she had 2 wedge issues she could have used.
I don't think I was paying that much attention when Kamala was still in the running because I just was waiting for this to kind of thin itself out. Yeah. And I was kind of still banking on Tulsi. So, I mean, even though I knew that wasn't going to happen. But.
Well, the thing with Tulsi, she's actually trying to win on the marketplace of ideas, not necessarily just wedge issues and vote for me because I'm a woman.
No, that's why she'll never be president. She'll never, ever, ever be president. She's far too reasonable. Although, she's still just, I still have to just put it out there. She's still a gun-grabbing socialist. But she's one that you can kind of get behind if you had to. It's like you wouldn't, if she was president, I don't think I'd be running into the streets screaming like, this is the worst that could ever happen. America's ruined. My guns would probably end up in a boating accident. I don't know. That's so.
All right, I got about a minute and a half left of this, so let's finish this out.
A slogan that was thought up by his consultants to paper over a thin version of a plan that would leave millions of people unable to afford their health care. It's not a plan, it's a PowerPoint. And Amy's plan is even less. It's like a Post-it note, insert plan here. Bernie.
I'm more of a Microsoft Word guy.
I must say I take personal offense since Post-it notes were invented in my state.
You should 3M.
But you're staking your candidacy on your Washington experience. You're on the committee that oversees border security. You're on the committee that does trade. You're literally in part of the committee that's overseeing these things. And we're not able to speak to literally the first thing about the politics of the country to ourselves.
Are you trying to say that I'm dumb, or are you mocking me here, Pete?
I'm saying that you shouldn't trivialize that
I made an
knowledge.
error. People sometimes forget names. He's basically saying that I don't have the experience to be president of the United States. I have passed over 100 bills as the lead Democrat since being in the U.S. Senate. I am the one, not you, that has won statewide in congressional district after congressional district.
But let's just be clear. Missing a name all by itself does not indicate that you do not understand what's going on. And I just think this is unfair.
So that's my highlight reel. Like I said, we just took it from NBC because there was little more that we could have done. I did manage to get a couple of the other ones, but yeah, like you said, the Post-it note comment was
I think
pretty.
that might have been. I wasn't sure if that was before or after the president of Mexico comment, but yeah, Elizabeth Warren made sure that she set herself up as the parent figure in that situation, and also kind of what I saw with Amy is that, one, I don't know if she's running for president or if she's trying to get a nightclub act, because the stale jokes
Yeah.
that I just feel like she's rehearsed in front of her mirror for God knows how long. It's like, it just makes it, it's like I can't take anything else she says seriously. She reminds me of that teacher that's like, first year and they're trying to like make the class comfortable and everyone's just like cringing. She just she just doesn't have that likability for me because she doesn't come off as authentic, even though I do think she has a lot of heart. She just, it's like, just drop the act, and I think the one time that I really saw that was when Mayor Pete started attacking her and she turned around and defended herself, and I really did like that. Even I was watching it and I kind of found myself like, go tell him, like, give him your record. Don't let him do this to you. And I really like that because I think she also was kind of pushed around by the panel too. I mean, it was clear that they were going to give Warren and Sanders as much time as they needed, and they were going to do that like, oh, your time is up, but they weren't going to hammer them like they did Amy and Pete, and even I didn't even see it that much with Bloomberg. So that's kind of where I'm at with her. So
Well, the interesting thing to me is, like I said at the beginning of the segment, we saw a lot of attacks against each other this time instead of just kind of a love fest and turning the entire thing into an orange man bad thing. But Amy too, about 80 minutes, I pointed this out on Twitter. At about 80 minutes in, she came right out and said, well, we're too busy attacking each other. Why aren't we going after Donald Trump?
yeah, I think that was because she was getting a lot of heat at that point. I don't think that strategy is going to work. I don't think voters want to see that. I don't think it's going to work. Just like I don't think that it worked for Mitt Romney when it was anybody but Obama. It's not going to that's not going to fly with people. They have more issues that they want to deal with than just get President Trump out of office. I know they want to. I know that's the biggest issue for Democrats, but I think just watching everyone talk about how they're going to do it and or how bad Donald Trump is, I don't think it's going to fly. They're going to have to give real facts and real reasons why they can beat them, why they can beat him, how they can beat him. So I think it was a bad move for her to even bring it up.
Well, I want to touch on a couple of expansions from what we saw from the Pete and Amy love feud, or whatever the hell they had going on.
Yeah.
So let's see. I got a couple other clips here from that just were between the two of them. Let's see what we've got here. Change this so I can interact with it and see it.
If I could respond, this was a pretty big allegation. He's basically saying that I don't have the experience to be president of the United States. I have passed over 100 bills as the lead Democrat since being in the U.S. Senate. I am the one, not you, that has won statewide in congressional district after congressional district. And I will say, when you tried in Indiana, Pete, to run, what happened to you? You lost by over 20 points to someone who later lost to my friend Joe Donnelly. So don't tell me about experience. What unites us here is we want to win. Right. And I think we should put a proven winner in charge of the ticket.
This is a race for president. This is a race for president. If winning a race for Senate in Minnesota translated directly to becoming president, I would have grown up under the presidency of Walter Mondale. This is different. And the reason that I think we need to talk about Washington experience is that we should ask what that experience has led to. Experience is, and certainly tenure is not always the same thing as judgment. If we're going to talk about votes in the Senate in Washington, let's talk about it.
I always find that interesting because I bring up the fact that, Walter Mondale is... I think they're trying to put up a Mondale at this point. I don't think they're actually seriously trying to come up with a candidate. I think they're just trying to find fodder to feed to Trump for a little while, so
Yeah.
he thinks he's got a mandate.
Yeah, I think so too. I think a lot of the back and forth between Amy and Pete also, and I could be completely wrong. I think it's because Pete feels like she's the one that he could attack without really just getting hammered. She seems nervous. She seems prepared, but not prepared to be on that big of a stage. And I think that he sees that, and that's kind of why he went after her the way that he did. I don't really think it's on policy. I don't really think it had anything to do with any of the bills that she's brought up. I don't think it had to do with any of that. I think that she just seemed like the easiest target for Pete to go after, because everyone on the other side of him would just hammer him on anything he said, really.
Well, we'll talk a bit about fanaticism in a bit here. I've got that up on the stack here. But that's kind of it, too. I mean, when he went after Bernie, they hammered on him. The Twitterati, the Twitter mob hammered him completely. Yeah. Just like they do to everybody else who goes after the Messiah. And even back when Yang was still on the stage, they would do the same thing, because Yang can do no wrong and do no evil.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed, I don't know if I think that was it for the reel.
I got one more here, and that's something on one of my pet projects on this. I wanted to point it out, but go ahead.
Well, maybe I should wait. But one of the things that was very obvious to me, I guess kind of the elephant in the room, is that Joe Biden did very well. He was very coherent. He found his podium. I mean, I was actually...
he took his medicine.
He took his medicine, yeah. I was actually shocked there. I couldn't really say anything bad about him because he had numbers. He didn't really... it was almost like Slick Joe, because everything was just like Teflon on him. And I don't even like the guy, and I thought, he seems like the most presidential of the people that are up here today. So I don't know if it was just like a momentary thing. I'm guessing it is, because I've seen every other gaffe, that he's made in the past year. But I was just kind of shocked at that last night, that it was just like nothing. No, he did really well.
All right, I got one more, and this is... they brought up the DREAM Act, which is something that I think really does need to be talked about. It's been something I've been hammering home since the beginning, because of the fact that I stand opposed to the fact that all these people are sitting in immigration limbo right now. Now, I would be actually in favor of amnesty especially if they're in the DREAM Act, because we've got the documentation, the paperwork on all of them right there. We could get them here, get them through the system, actually get them into citizenship or a path to it so they can vote. Or deport them. But for right now, all they are being is a club for every Democrat nominee to go and beat GOP members with. And I hate that.
Yeah.
And they brought that up. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah. But they talked about this. Amy and Pete once again went through this, and I felt that I needed to bring, especially with as important as a topic as this has been to me, this is something that I wanted to bring in. So let's see what they had to say with that.
The dreamers are our future. The dreamers are so important in Nevada, and the best way we can get this done is to beat Donald Trump, but it is to pass comprehensive immigration reform, which creates a path to citizenship to so many hardworking people, will bring down the deficit by $158 billion, and will bring peace for these dreamers.
Thank you so much,
no other
Senator
country but our own.
Thank you.
If you're going to run based on your record of voting in Washington, then you have to own those votes, especially when it comes to immigration. You voted to confirm the head of Customs and Border Protection under Trump, who was one of the architects of the family separation policy. You voted to make English the national language. Do you know the message that sends in as multilingual a state as Nevada to immigrants? You have been unusual among Democrats, I think the Democrat among all of the senators running for president, most likely to vote for Donald Trump's judges, who we know are especially hostile to dreamers and to the rights of immigrants. Now, in South Bend, it was not always easy to stand up in a conservative place like Indiana on immigration, but we delivered.
Yes,
everyone was as perfect. I wish everyone was as perfect as you, Pete, but let me tell you what it's like to be in the arena.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's policy involved in that there, and yeah, she did vote for that, but I mean, to the extent that I see that, I don't know. The president has the power to do the executive amnesty if he needed to, but I don't know. I don't know what you think about the Dream Act and what we need
She
to do.
got. Sorry, I think she got herself in the weeds a little bit there, but I understood what she was saying. Like, Pete wasn't in there dealing with all that at the time, and she had her reasons. Personally, how I feel about the Dream Act and how I feel about immigration. It I don't know. I mean, I do know. I feel probably about the same way you do. Where we need to find a path to citizenship for all of these people. We need to make it fast and expedite it. I don't really understand. I mean, I do understand, but it's like, well, why this has to take so long? It doesn't have to. I mean, Obama should have been able to get this done a lot faster than he even did. We still shouldn't even be dealing with this. Really, at the end of the day, just my libertarian heart tells me, like, if we got rid of all the welfare programs, I don't care if we open the borders and never have a wall or anything, and just everyone could come in and figure it out, and it wouldn't be a big deal. But obviously, that's not going to be the way it works. As it is now, we can't just leave these people hanging in limbo. These are actual human lives. So I don't know why Amy voted the way she did, but I do feel like she's been working for immigrants, and I think she had her reasons. I would have to do a lot more research on why she did those things. So,
Well, one of the problems that I have again with the Dream Act is it is limbo, and
yeah.
one of the things that I've noticed about this is the fact that the people on the left side of the aisle are trying to enshrine it as law that these people stay in the Dream Act forever. Which, again, it opens the door for some, I don't know, if we ever actually manage to get some alt-right figure like Richard Spencer into the White House or a cabinet position or something, where, yes, they are in danger of being deported. If we path the citizendom, they wouldn't have to worry about that anymore.
I 100% agree with you.
But that also solves a problem, and it takes away a club that they can use for, like I say, like you said, they're human beings. They're not a tool to be used on election time.
No, and I see that a lot, and it kind of makes me sick to my stomach that they are being used like that. I mean, I've lived in Los Angeles my whole life. I've lived in Southern California my whole life. I've met a lot of people. A lot of these people are my friends, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional now. But this is not okay to do to people, and it's not okay for the left to prop them up the way that they do, and say, look, the right is so bad, but it's like, you guys are doing the same thing. This could have been worked out years ago, easily. It's not that difficult, and we all know it's not that difficult. And sorry, I'm getting super frustrated right now, because this is just one of those issues that's really personal to me. And so, yeah, just going back to what Mayor Pete said about South Bend, Indiana, to be perfectly honest, I don't really take a lot of stock in what he has to say about it, because that's all he knows. So why would I trust him over somebody that has been working on immigration? I think it just was a bad look, just from where I'm sitting. Sorry, I went a little.
Well,
sorry for the emotion.
That's fine. Well, now that we've covered what happened in the debate in Nevada, let's talk about what happened in Nevada afterwards. So I left this to be determined, because when I was writing this, the caucus was still going on here. Looks like at this point, Bernie Sanders absolutely ran away with Nevada, which I think is a little bit fucky, because, to be completely honest, he had the animosity of the culinary union up until the day of the caucus, and I don't know what happened there, and I don't necessarily trust it either.
I don't either. I don't know. I don't know. I don't even know that I buy that. I guess I'll just have to put my tinfoil hat on.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, it just seems strange to me.
Well, I know that, especially too, because he ran away with Nevada and he barely eked out a win over in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I don't know what's going
which
on.
is practically his home state.
I don't know. Maybe they're onto him. So yeah, it's hard for me to even comment on that because I'm kind of blown away by I'm I'm just kind of blown away by by that whole thing. I just it's unbelievable. So
Well, I'm not too concerned about it at this point here. I know that I'm pretty sure the country is going to come together to try and stop the flow of socialism. And, your primary, you got your far lefty people are the ones that are coming out to vote. The center people aren't necessarily coming out to vote, especially in a closed primary like Nevada. Now, you look at states like Iowa. Well, I guess it wasn't a closed primary, it was a closed caucus. So you could only participate if you were a Democrat anyway. Iowa and New Hampshire are both open caucus states. So people
yeah,
like me could go in, like Wisconsin's open primary. I am planning on going in, getting a Democrat ballot in the primary, and voting for whoever the weakest Democrat is, just to throw a wrench into everything. Because we're not having a GOP primary in this state at all.
my the only thing I could really think about Nevada is just a huge and again it's just speculation. There's just been a huge influx of people from California moving in there the last 10 years. There's a lot of millennials. It's a very attractive place for millennials to move because there's so much housing being built and because of the low cost. And maybe that had a lot to do with it. I think a lot of it is just maybe not people that were born and raised in Nevada, maybe a lot of transplants. And again, that's just wild speculation.
So it's happening just like Fallout New Vegas, where the new California Republic is trying to take over Nevada.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I streamed that up on my game nights. Very familiar with that game.
Yeah, that's really all I can think of, you know, because otherwise it's just shocking, really, just flabbergasted.
The interesting part about this is that Joe Biden was not able to crack 5% in the last two primaries, from what I understand. And yet he got, albeit a distant second, he got second in the Nevada race, which is his best showing so far. And he is counting on a lot of the black vote coming up in South Carolina and then on to Super Tuesday, where it's honestly just about anybody's game at that point. So where do you think this goes?
Oh gosh, I don't even want to speculate because in what I feel like is going to end up is it's going to be a Trump Sanders, and I don't want to see that. At first, I really just thought it was going to be Joe. I thought Joe was just going to run away with this whole thing. And I think the reason he did so well last night is, again, because he was so coherent and he had numbers. And he has, when he has that fire, Joe Biden is a great speaker. Joe Biden can get an audience and can get people, to rally around him. I see that in him. He does have likability, but I don't know with the state that the country's in right now. I don't think it's going to be enough to get him, to the big game. So.
Let's talk about the other wrench that's going to be coming up on into this here. Looks like the Washington Post made a report with very little evidence, I might add, if any evidence at all, that there is still going to be another act of Russian collusion going on to try and make sure that the election goes the way that Vladimir Putin wants. But the target this time is not Donald Trump as it had been before. Now, Bernie Sanders is being accused, with very little evidence, of being an agent of the Russians. What did you think about that one?
Okay, boomer. Like, what else am I supposed to say to that? Okay, you got him. Like Bernie's a Russian asset. He like put him on the bench with Tulsi, and who else have we accused this week?
Jill
They all
Stein,
are.
hippie
Everyone
grandma.
I don't like is a Russian asset. I can't even take it seriously. I don't take it seriously. I don't care. I don't take it seriously. Like I'm sorry. I really I saw this in the notes and I thought, what can I say about this in a dignified, professional way? And there's nothing because it is utterly ridiculous. It
Well,
just is.
take heart because you're not on a dignified or professional show. You're on a
Yeah.
duct tape production out of a small apartment in Wisconsin.
So, yeah. I'm sorry. I wish I had more for you, but that's really where it ends for me. I just, you know,
Well, and it seems like to me, and I look back at this, I tweeted about this too, that this all comes back down to one person and one person only. It's whoever has crossed Hillary Clinton as the
yeah,
Russian agent.
yeah. And I think was it what were the rumors a couple weeks ago that was it AOC is gonna be Bernie's running mate, Hillary Clinton? I mean, I can't, it just seems like you hear Hillary rumors and then Russian asset rumors. So I agree with you. It's like I feel like there's not much to speculate on because it's just going to be this. Uh, how long before Mayor Pete's going to be a Russian asset? I mean, really, they all are. As soon as he says something against Hillary, it's just going to be the same thing.
Well, I don't know if Mayor Pete is because he is kind of DNC establishment.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm trying to check your feed right now. I'm not ignoring you.
No, that's fine.
So,
Let's see. So one of the things that I put on here, I've noticed this across the past couple weeks. I went hard on this during the Ed Talk, but I wanted to get some of your experience onto this as well. And it seems like we do have a sort of a religious fanaticism that are surrounding some of these candidates. And the two big examples that I've seen so far are the Yang Gang, which is still in existence, and there are still people that are saying they're not going to vote for any Democrat other than Andrew Yang in any sort of primary contest. We saw a lot of that too in the New Hampshire primary. I mean, Andrew Yang had dropped out, but he still got a pretty substantial chunk
yeah.
of the New Hampshire. He hadn't quite dropped out yet, but he got a pretty substantial chunk of that. And then the Bernie bros who will attack you if you even suggest that Bernie's ideas are wrong. I mean, I had a guy that pretty much said off to the dustbin of history with me a couple days ago when I suggested that being consistent for 50 years doesn't mean you're consistently right for 50 years. And I had to
Yeah.
ask the guy, I said, so when I'm off to the dustbin of history, does that mean I'm going to the gulag or the furnace?
Yeah, he'd have to leave his mom's basement for any of that to happen.
Yeah.
So, like, I, I, I see it, but I also would say I'm not somebody I'm not even immune to it. In 2016, I wrote in Austin Peterson, so we all kind of, not all of us, but a lot of us rally around someone, and even when we see that that's not going to be the guy, there's still our guy, and it's kind of hard to let that go when you've invested in someone emotionally. And I think a lot of people just feel that way about Yang. Yang was also kind of like that guy that you want to hang out with and had likability, and I see why people like him. I mean, even Ben Shapiro said he reminded him of a libertarian, which but no, but but he has that likability where okay, this guy kind of understands me. This guy you can work with, and the blue hat thing and the wanting to give you money. I mean, who wouldn't like that guy?
Yeah.
So the Bernie people, that I feel like they're some of the things that I've seen on Twitter, and just those people kind of scare me a little bit. Where like gang guys don't. I think that I kind of am wondering where they're gonna go. I don't think they're gonna go to Bernie. I think maybe Mayor Pete, maybe Joe Biden. And I think some of them might actually vote for Trump, as wild as it sounds. Just that, just that vibe. Bernie Sanders supporters legitimately scare me because they fundamentally want to change America.
Yes.
They fundamentally want to burn the Constitution to the ground,
And
and
Milwaukee.
yeah, they have it. They have a completely different vision for America than the rest of America, and it's scary. It's weird. It's weird that we live in a time where that's what that's a sect of supporters. That's who we have as somebody that's running for president of the United States of America. But
Well, the thing with Yang too, you try and point the numbers out to some of these people. The thing with Yang is I could possibly see if you could just snap your fingers and put $3.7 billion into an economy where his plan could actually somewhat work. He's got it laid out in really pretty numbers, and I think that's a part of the reason that he's got so much fanaticism behind him is because he's found a way that makes it work on paper. But I mean, when you have to instantly come up with, I said $3.12 billion. One of his fans corrected me and said it was $2.6 billion, which, oh wow, what, $500 billion somewhere in the difference there, a half a trillion somewhere in the difference. You still have to come up with that money instantly or borrow it against somewhere in the future, a future GDP growth, a future productivity goal or something like that. And you can ask anybody, you can ask Venezuela, but that does not work. And I got called a straw man for pointing that out because that's exactly what they did, was they borrowed against the future of their GDP.
yeah, I mean, it's all the number. I think he had the numbers put together. The things that weren't workable, or maybe that you would look at and go, that's not going to fit. I don't know, maybe he would have found a way for it. He probably wouldn't have, and things would have changed just like every other candidate. But like you said, like somebody to point that out is, I think it's kind of the same thing that Mayor Pete did with Bernie last night about where are we going to get this other $25 billion that you're asking, and he kept hammering it on him, kept hammering him, and he just wasn't responding. And then you see on Twitter that all the Bernie bros going after Pete, like he didn't ask a valid question over and over and over. So I think there's a difference between people that are looking at things factually and saying, how can we make things work? And people that are saying, this is my guy, and if he says it's going to work, it's going to work. So that's kind of, we're at a stalemate with a lot of these candidates there. One of the other things I think about Yang too is he, not in any policy, but he kind of reminds me of John Kasich from like where he could have been president and it wouldn't have been so bad, like another moderate type person where not my guy, most of the policies I would disagree with, but I think he's workable. I think that both sides of the aisle, again, someone I think will never, ever, ever be president because of that. And that's something, that kind of really bothers me, is one of the things that I see from Donald Trump and from these debates that we're watching is that the people that seem like they could work with the other side of the aisle absolutely will never have a chance to actually be president, because right now it's just about who has the bigger bite, who can draw the most blood, who's going to get their base riled up the most and get the most voters and then push the country in some crazy direction. Instead of us all remembering that we're all Americans, we all need to find a way to come together and work together and live together and tolerate each other. So yeah, that kind of went off course, but
Well, before we're actually almost about an hour into this again. But there's a lot of stuff to talk about in this topic here. Before we get out of this topic and I ask you the three questions, I got two more down ballot questions that are coming up here in the near future. First off, according to CNN reporting, friends of Ilhan Omar has confirmed the fact that she told them that she did marry her brother.
I mean, I don't know these people.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's hard for me to I mean, I could say like, yeah, do I want to believe that? Yes. Do I put it past her? No. Do I think it's probable? Yes. Can I say for sure if she did? No, I don't know. I'm not there. I don't speculate on things like that because all it is just me, kind of rooting for what I want to happen.
Yeah.
But no, I don't put it past her. No, I don't think that it's, she probably did. So,
Well, I mean, we've got the FBI involved at this point here, and they're calling it a felony if she might actually wound up doing this. So I'm kind of interested to see where this goes.
yeah, I kind of want to see where this goes too. And I want to see if this is something that she did do, what the consequences are going to be. Especially since, after the whole Katie Hill situation, which Katie Hill was my district.
Oh.
And to be perfectly honest, and I've had a lot of people, they always go against me on this. I don't think what she did was that big of a deal. I think two consenting adults, I get it, campaigning staffer can't have break rules, whatever. I don't like her. I didn't vote for her. I didn't have I didn't trust any of her policy, but I didn't see really why she needed to resign. For this situation, I mean, this is a whole nother can of squirrels right here. And if she married her brother, God, man.
Well, I mean,
it's
you've
just
got
like,
2 federal strikes against you at that point, immigration
Yeah.
fraud, and then
Yeah.
there's student loan fraud involved in that too.
yes. I mean, she should be in jail for that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. If the allegations are true, which it really seems like that's what it's leaning toward. It seems like this is all, factual and not just some crazy, out of, thin air rumor. There seems to be a lot of, where there's smoke, there's fire. So,
Now, the other one that I have up here on the stack is the fact that polling is now showing that AOC may be in danger of dismissal because her district is coming to unite against her. Jake and I talked last week about the fact that she actually has a very viable primary challenger coming up. It's Michelle. I cannot think of the 2 last names that she has, but the CNBC commentator is coming up
Yeah.
here. And now, yes, it looks like her district is starting to unite against her, which makes sense to me because, I mean, she hasn't done anything for her district in the time that she's been there. She's been all over the country basically trying to prop Bernie Sanders up.
yeah, I think a lot of AOC is, what she's been doing is trying to get herself on the Bernie ticket. That's really what it seems like to me, and somebody should run against her. I thought her district was going to be redistricted anyway, so since that's not happening, let somebody else run. And I don't think she cares. I think she got what she wanted out of this. I think she's probably, I don't know if she's going to be Bernie's VP, but
She can't be. She's not old enough.
sorry, yeah, but I think that I think she's positioning herself for something like that. I think that there's just, the things I see her just tweet, it's like she doesn't take any of this seriously. She's got a lot of passion in the wrong direction, but I think she's also, I don't know, I wouldn't want her running my district even if I agreed with her policies. I don't see her as somebody that really cares about her district at all. I could be wrong. Am I wrong? Even people in her own district don't like her anymore. So I think she said a lot of things to get herself elected, and then she had bigger fish to fry. That's really what it is for me at the end of the day, what I see with her.
Didn't Cenk Uyghur actually get her into this? And one of the big things that got me now that you mentioned that too is, I mean, when what was it? When the House wouldn't vote on certain way on some bill that they had on the floor in the House, she came out. She made a public statement saying that they had better vote the way that she wanted them to. Otherwise, she had a line of people waiting to primary some of these people, which I'm sure the Young Turks have organized as well.
Yeah, yeah. I can't say enough bad things about saying. Um, yeah, you know what? I didn't follow that too closely. To be honest, anything even surrounding him makes my stomach turn. The fact that he's running in my district right now, uh, just
Isn't Dr. Drew running against him too?
no.
No, that's
Dr.
Adam Schiff's
Drew,
district.
no, yeah, Dr. Drew's running in Adam Schiff's district, who I hope he does win. I don't agree with Dr. Drew on, Democratic policy, but I've personally been a fan of his for 20 something years.
Hmm.
I think that he would do good for that district. I think he cares about that district. I think that again, he's already famous. He doesn't need that notoriety. He would care about the district, and I think people would be smart in Burbank. What is their district?
West Hollywood.
Yeah, it's Burbank. I think it's Burbank. It was, yeah, but I don't know what their number is. I think that they would be smart to vote him in. I think he would do a good job for them, and I think that he would really care about change because he cares about people. From just everything I've seen, I've met him a couple times in person, just as a fan, just listening to him on the radio for years. I mean, I think that I think that he could make some changes that I would be okay with. So, yeah. And then whoever wins our district in the special election, I mean, if I could kind of put it out there, it wouldn't be Sank. I'm actually rooting for a woman named Courtney Lackey, who I think would actually do a great job.
Why in
our
God's name
district.
are you even having a special election? That doesn't make any sense to me. The general
Because
is like right there.
Katie Hill, because we don't have. I don't.
I understand why you're having
Oh,
one because she's out of there, but I mean, at that point, I would waste the money on a special election.
Well, I think everybody else that's running is kind of doing it because they're gonna look at this 8 months and not do anything.
Mm-hmm.
To be perfectly honest, where I'm at, I don't think we even need someone.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's just me. I don't think anyone else agrees with me on that. Maybe my other libertarian friends and anarchist colleagues. But, I think we're doing just fine. The less government involved, the better. But I mean, I actually had the chance to speak with Courtney Lackey.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're getting a little off subject. A couple weeks ago, and man, I think she could do some good out here. And I wish I could see her getting more traction. I don't know who it's going to be. It looks like it's probably going to be Christy Smith, I think. But we'll see. We've got 2 weeks and then 8 months of some random person, and hopefully that person's not just doing this to gear up, for the next election, which they all are. But
And hopefully that person is not the water buffalo.
I can't. It would not even. I don't want to. It's like I can't even say anything. That there's nothing. I can usually find something good about every person. I can't. There's nothing. I mean, he's popular. Like what else? This is terrible. Sorry.
Well, at the end of this segment, I always ask 3 questions to the guests. It's always the same 3 questions because we talk so much about the Democrat election coming up here. So the first question is, based on the statistics that you've seen, the voting patterns that you've seen in the last few states that have been running primaries, the news stories, and the debate performances, on statistics alone, who do you think is going to be the Democrat nominee out of the 6 that are running currently?
God, it hurts my stomach to say this, but Bernie Sanders. I don't know. I just, I hate it, but I think that's all.
Okay. So there are 6 people still currently running. 7 people, I'm sorry, still currently running. So out of the 7, who do you think, or who would you want to see if you had to have one of the 7? I'm sorry, not who do you think. If you had to have one of these 7 on the Democrat side, who do you want to be as president?
Um,
And you can justify it any way that you want.
Gosh, I think. Gosh, this is such a hard question because I just really don't want to see any of them as president ever. I'd like them to go home and not see their faces ever again. Part of me thinks, I think probably Joe Biden, because it wouldn't change much and it would be hilarious. So, like, if I had to pick, I'm going to go with Slick Joe because I just for the memes alone, really, that's it. I don't think much is gonna change under Joe. It's just gonna be status quo Joe. So that's what I'm hoping, anyways. I mean,
All right.
or maybe Mayor Pete. I don't know.
The last question I have is always just for fun, and this is for no policy prescriptions or no statistics involved. Just what you want to see for the laughs and for the lulls. If you had to have one of these people running up against Trump coming up in the next election, who do you want to see just for the laughs? Who do you want to see on that debate stage across from? Who do you want to see campaign ads from or against?
Out of the 7?
Out of the 7. Who's going to
Oh.
be the one that's going to entertain you the most?
I think the most entertaining is going to be Bloomberg because it just would make me chuckle to just have 4 years of the left being so angry about a rich old white dude being president, and then vote another rich old white dude for president on their side and justifying it. It just, to me, it's personally hilarious. So the ads would just be like what, like, you were worse to poor people, and then I mean, like, seriously, like, it would just be 2 rich old white dudes fighting, and what's more hilarious than that? Like, I mean, Bloomberg has nothing of substance that he could really attack Trump on that he hasn't done himself. So.
All right, let's check in with the live chat here. I know we've been neglecting them because that's always a nice long topic here. Never Evil says thanks for the shout out. John said hey back to him, and they said hey to each other again. Never Evil says sorry I'm not more chatty. I'm at work mostly listening. And then he said Wisconsin proud, so I'm guessing Never Evil is somewhere in my state.
All right.
Well, welcome on into the chat. I hope you stick around for a bit more. All right, let's talk coronavirus. And the first thing I've got is the visual of, as of last night, the number of cases confirmed, deaths, and recovered. So let's get that up on the screen here. As of last night, we're at 79,163 cases, 2,471 deaths, which is actually a quite low percentage, and I'm quite happy about that. And then 23,599 people recovered. Now, one of the reasons I made sure that the recovered stat was in here is we have found out over the last couple weeks that the people that have recovered are still contagious for another 2 weeks after the disease is gone. So that definitely adds an air of difficulty to things. But of course, we also have to consider the fact that I don't know if all of the numbers are getting reported the way that they should be. Something that Styx has been harping on for his entire series on this.
Yeah, I don't think they are. I don't think they're at all being reported the way they should. This, to me, I don't know. Usually when these kind of things happen, or we see these outbreaks and pandemic and kind of all those buzzwords that are used, I kind of take it with a grain of salt. But this, for some reason, it scares me. I have a son that has type 1 diabetes, and he's young. He is only 6 years old. He was diagnosed at 3. So now, looking at this just from a mother, from a parent standpoint, I also have a 3-year-old daughter. who she could probably kick this virus's butt, but like, but it scares me, and it scares me that I don't think we're being told everything that we should be. I don't think, I think things are being misreported, um, and so that's kind of my standpoint on it. I mean, I had a type 1 diabetes emergency this weekend with my son, and I did absolutely every single thing I could to make sure I didn't have to take him to the emergency room. You know, calling his doctor, calling his endocrinologist, being on the phone with him over and over so that I didn't have to take him in there, just on the off chance that there's somebody that hasn't been, you know, quarantined that is in there. Because again, you know, especially where I live, there's a lot of people that come in and out of Los Angeles from all over the world. Um, and I just don't want to be exposed to that. And I know that sounds a little like conspiracy theory-ish or overprotective, but it just is what it is.
It is, and I mean, you guys over there are kind of packed in like sardines too.
I mean, I'm lucky. I'm in Santa Clarita, so it's Los Angeles, but it's like North Los Angeles. In fact, most people in Los Angeles are like, "Is that still Los Angeles?" It's in the county, but we're a little, you know, further out. But I would still, you know, if I was taking my kid to the hospital, I would be taking them to like UCLA or Children's Hospital Los Angeles, or every sick child, you know, in greater Los Angeles County is going to probably, you know, they're going to be taking their kid and sitting in an emergency room with an immune compromised child. It's scary. So to not know if these numbers are even accurate and to not even know about this virus and to now be hearing that this was actually not, this virus didn't even come about the way that the Chinese are reporting that it came about. It just, you know, it gives me pause. So,
Well, one of the things that I've noticed too, and I've heard people talking about, and I think about this when I think about the disease, is for the most part, I don't think that this is going to be a deadly disease for the most part in the U.S. I mean, you do have an immune compromised child that you mentioned, so that may be a bit more of a scary thing, but the level of Western medicine that we have is for the most part going to keep this contained in this country. But I mean, right now this is ripping through places like Iran. Italy has closed its borders, which, given as far reaching as this is at this point, I think maybe too little too late. Many European countries are closing down immigration from the rest of the world, which is really interesting with the EU and which countries do have open travel and which ones don't. I don't know where this ends here or how this spreads, but I know that Iran isn't going to be able to contain it. They're barely past the Stone Age in medicine, which is really, really upsetting considering the pinnacle that Persia used to be.
yeah, I don't either. I don't, you know, I don't think it's going to be this, um, I really don't know. It's like, to me, to look at all of this, honestly, I think fear kind of clouds a lot of my judgment on this one just because of the unique situation that I'm in. Um, and I hope that it's contained quickly. I hope we can, you know, there's not as big of a death toll as it's being projected. And that's really the most I can really say on it, without just wild speculation.
One of the things that's come up, and this is the fact that they have 79,000 cases, and you know, stock traders don't want to necessarily trade with China if they could wind up getting sick on something that's coming on here, is this seems to be starting to have a toll on the Chinese economy, kind of sending them into a bit of a tailspin, which, I mean, you should be prepared anyway if you've got something like this coming. Have X amount of canned food, dried food in your cabinets, because you're going to start getting food runs and people are going to start not wanting to go to work. And of course, now people aren't going to want to trade with your country, but is this, especially going into the election year, and this is one of our bigger trading partners, what do you think this does to the economy, especially on our side?
Gosh, it's a kind of loaded question. I think that I don't think it's gonna be great. I mean, it's gonna be damaging. I don't think the effect is gonna be as detrimental on our side as maybe is projected by some people. At least I'm hoping it's not. Um, it's hard. It's just kind of hard to speculate what's going to happen, really, at all. Um, it, kind of. I'm trying to think back to what happened with like avian, like when we had the avian flu, and when there's SARS, like kind of what happened during that time, and I'm assuming that it's going to kind of repeat those same patterns.
You ever notice that this crap always comes out of China for whatever reason?
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't, I don't know if it. I think that it's just reported like that. I also have my like, again, my tinfoil hat. I think a lot of this might have had to do with the protests that were going on. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I think it could have a lot to do with population control. So, but and again, and I don't think any of it's going to be too closely investigated or looked at. I think we're going to be
Oh
told
God,
a
no.
story, and we're going to just move right along from that. And I mean, I think that's all we're going to get out of that. Although, I mean, I have seen the conspiracy theories online, and I'm kind of wondering about Dean Koontz' role in all of this. I don't know if that was true, if he actually did write about this virus years ago, but, you know, we will, I guess that's yet to be seen. Sorry, I am a little distracted. My son's nurse is texting me right now, so she's letting me know that he's not dying, which is great. That's always a good update for your kids. So,
Well, what are the other thing that I want to point out with this, and I've just been thinking about this as we go along here, is, I mean, this could do one of two things to our economy. It could either sink it because we're losing one of our bigger trading partners and nobody wants to go and invest or go over to China for any reason or do that, or because we get so many of our items from China, this may actually also increase some of our economy, get some of the jobs coming back into the country that otherwise would have gone to China. So I mean, this could go one of two ways.
um, maybe I'll be honest that how do I say this? It's a nice thought. It would be nice. I don't think that's gonna happen. Um, I don't think that it's gonna. I don't think a lot of jobs are coming back here because of this virus. I don't think we're gonna stop doing business with China. I don't. I think everything's just gonna be status quo. I think that this is a thing that was kind of in my mind without any actual proof, as was released to kind of control the population in China and what was going on, so that we were all distracted for a little bit. It got out of hand, and now it's ripping through other countries. And I think everything's going to go back to the status quo. In about 6 months, we're not even going to be talking about the coronavirus, other than somebody that's behind the times posting some stupid meme. And I think that's really where it kind of is for me right now. And I don't think that I'm too far off. I mean, I bet if we played this back in 6 months, we would be like, she's not too far off. So,
Well, I see a lot of that when I look back at some of my old episodes. I mean,
we'll all be dead. So,
who's talking about Charlie Gard anymore? And we'll talk about the UK health system.
right? Yeah.
That was actually the first episode of Ed's World ever, was not necessarily having a long form podcast like this. It was, I had a friend of mine on whose son has spina bifida to talk about what they do for healthcare for kids that are not necessarily the healthiest, like the Charlie Gard kid that didn't have a chance.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna have to go back and watch it. I don't think I've seen it because I started watching from your newest episodes backwards.
Oh.
So
Yeah, the very first episode was just I had a friend on, and that's all we did. We just talked about the Charlie Gard case because I wanted her perspective as a kid, and I never knew that I was going to wind up having a weekly conversation with people about stuff like this.
yeah.
Let's check in with the live chat here. Let's see what we've got coming on. Let's see. Rob George says you're right about Biden with a laughy emoji.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's another new person here. So welcome on in. Thanks for coming in and joining us here. John from Generational Gap came back.
Yeah, I know who's there. Anarchy Towards, who is one of the absolute greatest people on Twitter. So
Jessica Green. Yeah, she's actually
Yes.
scheduled for next week. So
is she? Oh, I will absolutely be tuning in. She is like don't even if you don't follow me, then fine. But you should be following Jessica because she is amazing. So she's not even one of my favorite people on Twitter. She's one of my favorite people in the world. So
well, how's
If
that
I
for a
could just-
shout out, Jessica?
she knows. Mwah, I love you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Check her out. And like I said, she will be on this show next week, and that'll be back at normal time. So check that out. What time zone are you in, Jessica? Because that's probably going to be something that's kind of handy to know, considering I'm going to be working around your schedule in a week. So we'll figure that out here. Let's talk about this Supreme Court decision. So this past week, a 5-4 decision, which I think is going to be every decision from here on out coming out of the Supreme Court, based pretty much down party lines, the Supreme Court decided that it was constitutional for the president to alter the immigration requirements for people to be able to make sure that they don't have, or they're not going to be going on food stamps when they come in. So therefore, immigration is going to carry a wealth requirement here, which, let's get that the fuck out of here. I understand why it's constitutional, but I still don't care for it.
Yeah.
But in
I
a
don't know.
scathing
Go ahead.
dissent, Justice Sotomayor decided that she wanted to go after the presidency and basically turn this event into a campaign ad to try and get the Senate back, which is something I've been advocating that the Democrats have been trying to do for this entire run, as not necessarily to get the presidency, but to get the Senate. So, did you see anything on this article?
I saw a little bit of it, and it was kind of clouded to be if I in my full disclosure, because I absolutely disagree on policy, Justice Sotomayor on everything.
Yeah.
But she has type 1 diabetes, so I absolutely admire her and respect her for being able to do what she's been able to do and live with that and give my child, it's a very selfish view, but give my child a look up to and say, like, look what you can accomplish in life, even though I absolutely disagree with everything that she has to say. So, yeah, that's my disclaimer. I didn't see a whole lot other than that because every time the conversation came up, it just happened to circle back to type 1 diabetes. So I apologize for my ignorance in this area. So,
Well, let's start with the decision that immigrants should be necessarily able to stand on their own 2 feet when they come in.
well,
Now, I don't necessarily agree with it. I want to start on this one. I don't necessarily agree with this policy because you never know what the future is going to hold. I mean, I got out of school for auto mechanic with the idea that you're always going to need that, everybody's going to need that, you're always going to be able to find a job. And then the market was so flooded that for 10 years I was almost completely unable to find a job that didn't last for more than 30 days. You never know what's going to come down the road. And to have the requirement that you have to stand on your own 2 feet to be a legal immigrant is, I don't know.
what is the wealth requirement? Do you have the numbers?
I don't. From everything that I understand, the only wealth requirement is that you won't be able to come in on food stamps. So it may mirror some of Canada's, where you actually have to have a valuable asset to the country, and you'd have to have a sponsor to come in. But I've not been able to find the policy at this point.
So I kind of feel torn on this because I don't want anybody coming into the country on and going directly onto food stamps. I don't want people in this country on food stamps. So,
Yeah.
sorry, you cut out and I didn't hear what you said. But I, I don't know necessarily telling somebody that is trying to come into this country that you have to make a certain amount or you have to have a certain assets before you can come here. That doesn't, I guess, sit well with me as a requirement, and I would have to think on it more, because the reasonable part of me, I guess the logical side says, well, it makes sense to not put more of a burden on the system, just because I don't want any, I don't want anyone that's already even here to be, a burden on the system. So I'm really kind of torn on this, how I feel about all of this. I wish I could give you a better answer, but it's so nuanced. Asking people to come to this country and not go on public assistance is one thing. Telling people before they can come into this country that they have to, make a certain amount. I think those are two completely different things. They seem related. I mean, they're related, but they're asking two very different things, because people can come to this country with absolutely nothing.
And they did for generations.
Yeah, and they've found a way to not just survive but to thrive in this country. Isn't that the whole? Isn't that what the American dream is about? So it I don't know. It doesn't really sit well.
Well, and I've kind of looked too at what life used to be like before we had public assistance on things as well. I started writing a sort of a, I don't know, mafia fiction novel. I was coming up with the idea of what it would be like if the Italian mafia and the Yakuza went to war during Prohibition on this soil, which actually would have been impossible because the Yakuza hadn't formed yet, but I digress on that. And one of the things I looked into is what it was like for Italian immigrants coming between the world wars, and what they were required to do and how they were required to carve out their own living, which, whether legitimate or illegitimate, that's for time to tell. But I mean, on the top of that, I mean, they came over with nothing, and they were able to go out, find a job, get a house. They were able to fend for themselves without having any public assistance, because at that time we didn't have public assistance for them to go on.
I mean, that's a direct, like literally a direct line of what happened with my family. They're from Sicily. My great grandmother was, it's questionable. We're not sure if she was born in Sicily en route or if she was born here, because she has a questionable birth certificate. But I do know that they didn't have assistance when they came here. I do know that they made their own way. I also know that they did some things that were probably less than on the up and up. So, I think that people absolutely can make it in this country coming here with nothing and not being on assistance. I think that's just a completely different issue than saying you can come here, but you have to have X amount of this to come here. I don't really know how that works out for people that really need to be here, to, escape what they're trying to escape in their country. I don't even know how that would work, how you would even, how to even look at that and gauge. I guess that's just one measurement of how you would gauge if somebody is eligible to live here. So.
Well, and yeah, you're absolutely right on the point of, we're not going to have people come over just to take out of the system. And I mean, that's been one of the things too. When you look at socialist countries, and we have a left in this country that's trying to hurtle itself down towards socialism or communism right now, but the first thing you notice about communist Russia, communist Cuba, or any other socialist communist country, even to an extent the Nordic countries, even though they've kind of changed that a little bit in the past, but to an extent when they started out on the socialist path, those borders are slammed shut faster than you can say anything, because immigration is a variable, and that takes away from your planned economy. If you have variables, you don't have a planned economy anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that. We see it over and over again, and I've always kind of thought if we had a GOP candidate that came in and said we need a path to like citizenship, and actually made that a highlight, and instead of like we need to build a wall, we need, and like kind of, because that to me doesn't really seem like the rhetoric that we've always had in this country. It's just not the rhetoric we've always had in this country. And I know there's a lot of talk about like nobody pulls themselves up by their bootstraps, but that's kind of what we've always kind of held in our hearts as Americans, is like you can come here, but and it's gonna be rough and tumble, and you're gonna have to like take your knocks, but you can make it here. You can make it here, and but you might have to do it on your own. But we're all trying to do it on our own, so we're all kind of doing it together. So we're all kind of coming up together. And now we have this weird, love us and them, and we also have the other side of like, well, we're all one, and so we all have to like do for each other. And I don't think either of those things are right, but like I always feel like if we just had like a GOP candidate that was really more pro immigration, we would have a lot less, like I think we would have, one, a lot less issues with immigration, and two, it wouldn't be this fear that kind of ruminates underneath conversations where people are like, well, if we make these people citizens, they're going to vote against us. Like, well, then get them on your side. Because if people are going to come here, they're going to come here. They're going to figure out a way to come here. Get them on your side.
Mm-hmm.
Do better. I mean, that sounds controversial. Probably everyone's going to hate me after saying it, but it's not rocket science. If you want people to be on your side, do things that are going to get them on your side. But, and it doesn't have to be here. We'll just offer you everything for free, because that's going to just make everyone that's already here hate you.
Well, and I've said that too about the DACA program. If Trump went out tomorrow and said, okay, you have the forms out for DACA, we're going to turn those over to INS, or it's not INS anymore, it's ICE. We're going to turn those over to ICE or Department of Interior, whatever department that is, and we're going to use those to start you down a path to citizenship. Democrats wouldn't win for 2 generations.
No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't, because, and people would, it would be just clear as day. People would see like, okay, he's doing this, he's gonna, I don't know, now, maybe not Donald Trump. No, I'm not saying anything against him personally. I'm just saying because there's so much surrounding him, and so, I think anything that he could go out tomorrow and do that, and I think people are gonna still say all the things that they say and hate him, and there's still gonna be the rhetoric. Just because underneath it all, I think people always want to have a villain.
Mm-hmm.
They always want to have a villain. They always want to have savior. And politics is no different than anything else. But I agree with you that a majority of people, of thinking people, it would be better for the country, and it would be something that's lasting generation to generation.
So let's move off of this for a second and talk about Sotomayor's reaction to this, which, of course, came right out and said that winning the presidency now is imperative to protect the balance of the courts and keep them from falling into the GOP hands, which, I'm sorry, was kind of the point of electing a Republican to the office, no matter how much of a Democrat he actually was.
I don't know if you can hear me. You totally cut out.
No, I got you. I can hear you just fine.
Oh, okay. I think you cut out. I couldn't hear anything that just came in. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, Sotomayor said winning the presidency was imperative to protect the balance of the court for decades.
Yeah. Well, I disagree with her. I think that I actually do agree with her, and I'm glad that we have the president we have because I think we did protect the court.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that at some point you got to fall somewhere, and that's where I fall on that. I would be horrified probably at the picks that we would have if we had a Hillary Clinton president, and so that's where I am on that. I mean,
Well, it would be a lot more legislate from the bench. And that's,
yeah,
I put it in the notes. One of the big topics that I think about when I think about the court is three different ideas that I think people want to have. And that is constitutional interpretation, which I think, as much as people didn't really like Kavanaugh's ruling on the abortion question, that one, because he didn't even want to hear that one. He did go directly onto constitutional interpretation because the case that was brought forward, I read it, was an activist case on the GOP side. So we go through this idea of constitutional interpretation versus conservative judgment, what the GOP wants, versus legislation from the bench, which is essentially what the left wants. And I'm sorry, but I really think we need to go directly to the first one and just send the other two to the dustbin of history.
yeah. Oh, are you still there? Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I think it's just me. I think I'm just. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would have to agree with you. I've completely lost my train of thought because I. Sorry, just totally lost my train of thought because it kept glitching on me. But yeah, I would agree with you on that.
So, and that was kind of the point too. Of, I mean, one of the things we looked at, there was a vacancy on the court during the election, during the 2016 election, which God forbid there's another one coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Ruth is not going to live forever.
She's gonna try. I mean, she's got some gusto. I don't know any other situation where we would have somebody with that many health issues kind of carry the weight of the decisions that she carries. But she's gonna stick around. I don't know. I think she's maybe holding on until this election. We'll see what happens. But if Donald Trump becomes president again, we have another seat that opens up, then I would be fine with it. It's not going to bother me. So, I mean, I know a lot of people are going to be upset.
Oh, there are going to be riots in the street.
Yeah, I don't think, you know what the thing is, though? I don't see, like Neil Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, I don't really see either one of them as somebody that is so far right. I think that in any other presidency, you would kind of see more middle of the road. Sorry, that's my
Oh, that was on your side.
It is on my side. I apologize. It's the school office. I didn't text them back fast enough. So my son spends a lot of time in the nurse's office. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
That's all right. So he's actually this is his last year in public school. So we will be homeschool charter school next year. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't think in any other, I don't really see in any other presidency either one of those picks being super controversial. I think that they just are because of the president that we have and the time that we live in. And I think with Gorsuch, was it that we had like, okay, it should have been Obama's pick. Well,
Well, and I do want to point something out on that too, because you brought that up, and I've been excoriated up and down over this, but it's not documented, the fact that they said that. Now, first I said Chuck Schumer, and that was wrong, and I corrected myself on it. It was Harry Reid. But during the last term of George W. Bush's Congress, Harry Reid came out and said the Senate is not going to even hear any of his judicial picks, and if for whatever reason he gets a Supreme Court pick, they're not going to hear that either. He came out, he made a public statement about that, the fact that they weren't going to do that for him. And then they got really, really surprised when Mitch McConnell did the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't I understand. I guess it's their job to have this faux outrage, but um, this is their jobs. Then they know what comes with it. They know what's going to happen. Um, it's just like some of it's just the luck of the draw. Oh well, too bad. Then you do better next time. That seems to be my response to a lot of the things that I see, because I see grown adults that have a job to do that don't do their job, and then don't get the votes, don't get things to go their way, and then I'm supposed to feel sympathetic towards that, you know, oh well, that's just the way it is. Now we have a different president. You guys, the left had, it was like set up the way they set it up, that Hillary Clinton should have won and she should have had these picks. Oh well, sorry if that seems, condescending or whatever, but I don't feel bad about that. And if we have another Trump presidency and we have another seat open and he gets another pick, then it, they have not changed course from anything that they've done, and yet they get upset when things don't go their way. So if things aren't working, change course. If you want those picks, then do something different than you were doing in 2016. And all I'm seeing is more of the same. And so it looks to me like we're going to have another 4 years of Trump. And we probably, I don't know. I think we are going to have another seat open during his next term. I mean,
The thing I've always predicted is I think that they're going to either admit that Ginsburg has passed away 2 years ago, or she's going to retire in September of this year. So that's a wedge issue that going into the election
yeah,
to drive the vote.
yeah, I could see that. Absolutely. I mean, I absolutely could see that happening. Um, I could absolutely see that being like an ace in the hole, because that would drive voters. That would 100% drive voters to the voting booth.
I think that's what they were trying to do with the Kennedy seat. He just retired too soon.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. You know, the way you laid it out, yeah, I absolutely think that could be a possibility, and I think it's not going to be shocking now when it happens. And we'll kind of see how that. I think it will drive voters if that happens. I don't know if it'll be enough, but we'll see. I mean, I still see the same level of. I still see that same level from the debates, especially thinking that they're gonna win this. That it's in the bag. That we just. It's not about. Defeating Donald Trump. It's about which one of us is going to get to do it. And I think that arrogance is kind of what got them in the position that they're in now. So, we'll see what happens.
Well, let's check in with the live chat here, and we've got a couple more topics here for the end of the day. Looks like Jessica Green. Oh my God, they said my name. Yes. Apparently she loves one of us too, and I'm guessing that's going to be you. And you're in Eastern time, so I'll keep that in mind. I like this here. This must have been when we were talking about the mafia. Sometimes stuff falls off the back of the truck. What are you going to do? All right. Let's talk about your neck of the woods here. Now, a ballot initiative coming up here is coming out in Western Oregon, or Eastern rather, Oregon counties, to decide whether they want to split away from Portland and join on with Idaho. This is called the Greater Idaho Project. And I thought this was just going to be a few of the counties that were up on the border, but I found this map here, and this actually extends down into California now, so this is a lot bigger than I thought. This is the Greater Idaho Project here, reaching down into Northern California, pretty much just cutting Portland and its surrounding area off from the rest of the state, and them joining up into Idaho. What are your thoughts on this?
I really don't know I don't really know what that would do or change for my economy, for Oregon. I really, I haven't even paid much attention to it, this even happening, and I should have, because it will most likely, if it does happen, will affect me, but probably not too much. So I don't really have a whole lot of thoughts on it.
Yeah. Well, I've thought about this before, and this is something that's come up. This is actually one of the first things that I talked about when I started doing solo videos was the idea, and that was one of the big stories that came up, was the fact that California was getting ready to split into three pieces. That was 2 years ago at this point. So this kind of goes along with the same idea. We might start to see some actual shifting of territory in this country because there's so much of a polarization, and I mean, different parts of the states are so polarized from some of their capitals, especially. I mean, I look around Wisconsin here, and we are massively different everywhere else in this state from Madison, our capital.
Okay.
Look at anywhere. Downstate Illinois is another good one too, and Illinois actually went through and did a ballot measure to try and excise Chicago and make Chicago its own state. So we'd have the state of Illinois, which would be a mostly conservative area, and then just that small chunk up on the Great Lakes region, that would be Chicago, and a new state, 51st state. But this is huge. I mean, we haven't seen anything like this since the 60s.
Yeah, this could potentially take hold and change a lot of things. I mean, I'm guessing this would be probably a lot of blue, if it did happen, just from what I'm kind of looking at. But I haven't done enough research to really give you any sort of qualified answer on it. I apologize. But it would definitely change probably the face of California, because I think that it would also push California to maybe revisit splitting up the state again.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it if something like this happened, it would just be a motivator for us to split up the state, because we are so because we do have that same kind of break where kind of the middle of the state is a little more conservative, and then we have Silicon Valley, and then we have Los Angeles. I mean, so I could see it leading to talks of that again, and potentially changing the way California looks, or if California stays one state or not.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Oregon, they're a bunch of hippies anyways, right? Just kidding. Don't hate me, Oregon. I just don't know enough about you to care. I just keep digging a hole. No, I mean, and I think that it might do the same thing though in Oregon, and that because they also kind of have that split in certain areas. So I think it could lead to a lot more talks there too, and really kind of changing the way the country looks, in the West.
Well, not just the West. I mean, everywhere else too. One of the big talks I came around with, well, obviously, like I say, I see it firsthand because I live probably about 2 hours away from Chicago. So I see, the liberal side of Rockford, Chicago area, but once you go downstate, I was just down in Springfield for a wedding, and it's farmland and very right-leaning once you get down out of the Chicagoland area. And I mean, if you look at upstate versus New York City, that's another big one. That's another big difference. I have a hard time believing that New York City is even a part of upstate New York just because of the way the map is formed. Because it is legitimately a separate part. You could almost call it New Jersey rather than New York State.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that.
But what do we do then do we start adding states, or do we just start actually seeing stuff split? Territory change, state lines change.
I mean, I would say just kind of changing the territory. I think we're gonna just see a mix of both. I really this again though. I mean, this is different. This is kind of a new looking at something that's new, but we've kind of had these talks for years and years of what we're gonna our state's gonna split. Are they gonna? Uh, I mean, Texas has said they're gonna secede for like what since we became the United States. So I think just kind of I think we're just going to kind of have to wait and see what happens. And I really don't know how it's going to look. I really don't know how it's going to change things. So I like I can see the reasoning behind it, but I'm also kind of wondering how this will split up. Like how many I'm just kind of wondering how this is going to split up, like voting wise and things like that. So I don't know if it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. I really, I really don't know. So,
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, Texas has been threatening to secede since they joined the union.
yeah.
And it's an interesting idea to see some of this territory get split up. One of the biggest fears that I had when they first started talking about pushing Chicago off of Illinois, which it was actually a ballot initiative that went through this the city of Springfield, the capital of Illinois. I was afraid, now that we have a new Democrat governor, that Tony Evers was going to try and buy it back. Because if you look at the original territorial map, Chicago was in Wisconsin. But when they admitted Illinois into statehood, they took Chicago so they could have a shipping port and so that it could be a free state, a northern state, because most of the downstaters were still looking for slavery. They had just admitted Mississippi as a slave state and they needed to have a free state to balance it. This is the reason that Chicago's in Illinois and not Wisconsin. The state line was supposed to be at the bottom of Lake Michigan.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
I didn't know that either until I started researching to do a video on it.
Well, that's the key. I guess I'm gonna have to do research, but
Off the cuff is just as good.
yeah.
All right, we are running up on the clock here, so we're going to check the live chat before we hit this last topic here. We're going to see what we can do to bang through that one here. Looks like Ron Helton is here. One of my biggest fans here. I saw that. We'd love to see a greater Ohio. And then he says, yes, merge New York City with New Jersey. Jessica Green says, America needs a divorce.
Oh no.
And Ron Helton says, we need to fracture down the size of individual houses. I don't like the idea that where I live, it only takes a simple majority to raise property taxes. Yeah. That is something we need to pay attention to. All right. So let's talk about the National Health Service in the UK. Now, according to both Breitbart and LGBTQ News, which I took sources from both of them, a new UK law will allow medical professionals to deny non-emergency services to people who are generally disrespectful or have known to make offensive judgments, which I looked at this story here, and basically what I took out of this is if you've ever made a gay joke in your life, the hospital can say, go to hell.
Okay, so I have some words on this.
Go ahead.
I absolutely don't. This is what I'm talking about. This is why the government shouldn't be involved in healthcare, because then they get to decide. Once they're involved in one aspect of your life that can make or break you, they are in control of every aspect of your life. I absolutely think that this is just disgusting. That said, if a private hospital wanted to make this policy, if even an industry decided that this is going to be an industry standard, fine. Also, just on a general basis, like, I don't know, like, don't be a jerk when you go into a hospital. I think people's behavior, I think, nobody should act this way. Nobody should be like that. But also, we're talking about people that are coming in under stress. A lot of times, people that are coming in, maybe not with their full mental facilities. People that are, you see people from every single walk of life. So I think it's a dangerous game to play. And I think that it also makes it really, really easy to deny people healthcare and save yourself a little money if they've ever done something you don't like, and then all of a sudden you could tell them, well, that's the policy. And I think that that's kind of a lot of what this is, because what constitutes, this type of behavior? What are they saying constitutes that? I mean, there's the obvious, and then there's the more nuanced. And are we going to go back and forth with what's bad behavior? What's acceptable as an adult in society, what's not? There's a lot here to unpack, and none of it should be a law. I mean, again, if you have a hospital and that's your policy, that's fine with me. But just to say blanket, like, that they don't have a choice, like, I don't even know how, as a doctor taking a Hippocratic oath, that could sit well with you. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, and I haven't taken that. I just don't know how that can sit well with you.
Well, you kind of hit all the points that I have up on here, and of course, the first one I said was is who decides. And yeah, once again, if it's private hospital and they want to do that and lose out on money, under a private system, obviously another hospital is going to crop up somewhere that's going to say, hey, bring me that sweet money over here. We'll charge you for it.
Yeah.
But yes, getting the government involved, and this is a national policy. This is something that obviously the UK government wants to have enacted. And the thing, I wouldn't have paid attention to this, I don't think. I think this would have just completely slipped my mind and gone over, except for the fact that people like Bernie Sanders, people like Elizabeth Warren, they want to model our healthcare system after the European style one. So does this come over here at this point?
Oh, it will. It will. If you think it won't, then it's crazy to think that this type of behavior is not going to happen, that these type of things aren't going to happen. We can't just say, like, oh, look, there's good parts of this, but we won't do, the bad parts of it are not going to happen. Like, of course they are, because people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders think that this is a good idea. If you set them down in a room, I guarantee they would say, like, well, people shouldn't be talking like that. They're the same people that say, well, if you haven't done anything wrong, what do you have to hide? Like, that's what this is. That's the same type of thinking. Like, well, if you don't say anything bad, nothing will happen. Like, that's scary. That's just, to me, downright un-American. Like, I saw that it's like that. If that's what they want to do over there, that's fine. That's not a model. I'm four square against that model coming here already. This just is another nail in the coffin for me.
Yeah, I understand that too. And, once again, you have the Hippocratic Oath. You're there to heal. You brought that up perfectly, right? As much as I wanted to say that. You've taken an oath to help the sick, to do no harm, and all I'm seeing here is the fact that the government is authorizing you to do harm for, I don't know, whatever reason, just to take out your enemies.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't know what the real reason is. I'm sure what's being said is like, well, it's to protect the hospital workers. It's to protect, the employees, the doctors, everyone else. We're not, again, just so we're clear, and because I might be a little ignorant on this, it's not people that are taking a swing at a doctor. It's people that are saying words, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about words.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about, like, hitting. We're not talking about grabbing, like, a pan, and hurting someone. We're not talking about stabbing someone. We're not talking about physical violence. We're talking about saying words at someone, right?
Yeah.
That you're going to say, I know that you're having a heart attack, but I feel like you might be kind of racist, so you're on your own. Like, that's what we're talking about. That's the balance that we think is okay. That there's a group of people, that there's a government that thinks that that's okay. That's
Well, okay, let me back that up here because this was specified as non-emergency services only. So a heart attack would probably still
okay.
fly, but let's go back to the type 1 diabetes, like you've brought up continually throughout the show. If you can't go and see your doctor to go and help get your, I don't know what goes into the diabetic test. I've not had type 1 diabetes, but to get tested for it, to get your insulin prescription refilled or anything like that.
Yeah.
And then you're on the hook for an emergency visit rather than just a regular walk-in visit that would have been covered by your insurance.
First, let me say this. There is no way that I buy into the idea that this is staying with non-emergency services. There is no way that this is not going to expand into emergency services, because the question the question that is asked is, does a doctor performing emergency services have less value than a doctor that's not? So why should they be able to have to stand this level of abuse and not another doctor? I know all the reasoning. I'm just saying there's no way it's not going to creep into that sect. Second, I absolutely agree with your point, because if I yelled at a doctor, most doctor's offices are not going to have me come back if it was a continual habitual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they have the right to do that. So I would have to go somewhere else. But to have, I don't really know how this looks over there. So if it's a law, if I go to one doctor and they report this, am I just not allowed to go to any other doctor? I mean, how does that work? How does that look? I mean, how does everything not turn into an emergency? How does it not all turn into a huge mess where your EDs and your ERs are just packed all the time with people that have done something that the government's deemed racist or mean or whatever? It doesn't seem like good policy.
And of course, the most obvious question, and actually the question that brought this news story to my attention, I saw it on Tim Pool's YouTube page, and that's what made me pursue it down here, is I've been told for the last 5-6 years now that healthcare is a basic human right. This kind of flies in the face of that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, and I was just gonna bring that up. So it needs to be one or the other. If it's a basic human right, which obviously I absolutely don't think that, I don't agree with that, but how can you deny somebody health care no matter who they are? I mean, no matter what they say, no matter what they do. If it's a human right, it's a human right. Are we saying that people that do this are subhuman? Is that where we're going with that? I mean,
I was kind of thinking the same idea there. Are we dehumanizing these people?
that's essentially what you're doing when you tell people that everyone should be allotted health care except for the ones that don't have right think.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, when you break it down like that, it kind of just seems to fall right in line with every single thing, every other thing that is kind of goes along with that line of thinking. Is if you're not thinking the same way we are, then you're not actually a person. You don't actually matter. So now we're just moving that along into healthcare. And again, how long before it's emergency services?
Mm-hmm.
And again, how long before they don't need to be part of society?
And how long until it's on this shore?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
And, I mean, what does it constitute? I mean, this is on YouTube and many other places. And I would be considered a person that has wrongthink to many of these people here. Is this going to come to a point where I'm not allowed to go to the doctor because I speak out against the large federal government? Is that what they're going to use as a criterion?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm pretty sure I'm in the wrong think category. So, at least 50% of the time. So, Yeah, it's not, it's, I kind of we look at this European model and we can say how long before it comes here, or we can be rational about it and go, they are crazy. We should not do anything like that. So let's find something new. Like, and I think that's what rational people do. Um, but you're right. How long before somebody brings it up? How long before it's a, um, it's something that somebody that, and mostly a politician that knows nothing about the, healthcare, that wants to make a name for themselves, says, hey, this is something that we need to do to protect, these people. Because it's always under the guise of protecting people, So,
Oh, I thought that politicians were expert in the pet projects that they did. Like all the ones that are experts in guns.
yeah, they're all experts in guns. Or in California, I don't even remember his name because it wasn't worth it to me. The politician that decided that my kid, who already California doesn't let you take your kid to school without a vaccination unless they have a doctor's note, decided that doctors don't know enough about kids that are sick and that might need spread out vaccinations or not have them, to excuse them. So now everybody just has to do it and go through appeals process, which puts my son, who also has inflammation, puts me in a position that I get to decide, do you go to school? Do I give you all the vaccines and all at once? And I'm personally very pro vaccine. I absolutely believe in them. Don't come at me, YouTube. Don't come at me, Twitter. I believe that they were just a boon for health.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, so I get my son vaccinated. However, his doctors have decided that he needs to be on a different schedule. The state of California has decided that the doctors don't know what they're talking about, and we can appeal that. So he can choose to go to school, or he can choose to get all his or he can choose to spread out his vaccinations the way the doctors want. And those are the type of things that we're going to see with that same model, is people that really don't know what they're doing making decisions for people that actually do know what they're doing, under the guise of, like, well, there's fraud, or these other kids might not be protected, and it's just a ridiculous, it's always just something ridiculous. It's like a fringe thing that pushes this control. It's all of this is about controlling people and about controlling their thinking. So, yes.
Well, that's all I have for this run here. Of course, we will be back at 6:30 tonight, but we're going to check the live chat the last time, and we'll run through the outro here. Looks like Jessica Green got the same idea that I did here. I thought healthcare was a right, though. Then Ron Helton says, security theater for the masses and real security for the elites in the government.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I didn't understand what he said there at first, but now that I read the whole thing, I understand what he said. Okay. Yeah, fake security for the masses and real security for the elites. That's what he meant by theater.
Yeah, I know. That's one of my favorite thoughts, is security theater.
All right. Well, the last question I always ask the guest here, and because we have so many heavy, deep topics in politics, we need to end on a light note. So, tell me about a hobby that you have that has nothing to do with work or politics. It could be an album you picked up, an instrument that you like to play, just something that helps you wind down at the end of your workday and at the end of commenting on things on Twitter.
So, one of my favorite things to do now, I've always kind of been a designer, artist. My son has insulin pods, and I put it in, the documents. I don't know if you can put it up or not, but
Yes, I can.
One of the things that makes it easier for him is if I draw on his pods. So I get just an immense amount of joy doing these little art projects on his pods, and it's just Sharpie and white out, and it's usually last minute. It takes me, a couple minutes, and it's whatever he comes up with. So obviously I'm not the greatest artist in the world, and I don't have a multitude of talent over different, fields, but he asks for different things and I try and come up with it. So, I'll put, he wanted like Jack Skellington or Spider-Man sushi one time because his favorite food on the planet is yellowtail sashimi and sushi. Captain America, the Hulk, just whoever he comes up with, and so I draw them for him, and it makes it a little easier to put the pot on him and deal with kind of that, and it's just I don't know, it's just something that brings me joy, and it's kind of therapeutic to do, and it just makes it, since I can't find a cure for him, I can make it a little easier for him. So I guess that's not super light, but my heart's a little lighter after doing it. So,
Well, that's interesting, and I did get that up on the screen over on the other side, so everyone got a chance to check that out here. And I want to thank everybody for coming in and checking us out live for the first run and for the second run, if you're on the second run right now. Checking us live over on YouTube, DLive, Twitch, Periscope. We're not on Facebook because we got zucked, but you can check us out on all of those live platforms. If you're just catching up at the end, once again, you can check us out at 6:30. We'll be recasting this, or you can catch us on demand. Once the video finishes processing over on YouTube, you can check us out over there, or it will also be uploaded to bitshoot.com. Additionally, you can take us on the go in your car, on your way to work or everything, on the audio platforms. We're on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. And please, if you're on iTunes, leave us that 5-star rating and a good review. That really helps us move up the charts. It helps us defeat Apple's algorithm, so go ahead and leave us that 5-star rating so people can search for us. If you want to finish the conversation with me, you can finish the conversation over on Twitter. That is at EdsBlog Twitter, with a 1 in place of the I. Or if you're on YouTube, you can look down below DLive as well and find a host of other links that you can go and find me at. Go check us out over there if you want to finish the conversation with my guest. Britt, why don't you tell us where they can find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Tweets by Britt, and then I have a podcast coming out eventually. And that will all be on Twitter. So just find me on Twitter. I'm always there, even in the middle of the night. So Tweets by Britt. So
that is linked down in the description below. As we always say on this show, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. Britt, why don't you give us a last word?
you know what, guys? Just live your life in a way that the government doesn't have to live it for you.
Very good. Take care, everyone.